The question I was asking Bishop, even as we were preparing for this episode, is what do you do when your identity is rooted in rejection and loss? That question is huge because so many of us face rejection.
Mind broadcast with your hosts, Bishop C. Guy Robinson and Dr. Jonathan Shepard, where we explore faith and mental health perspectives on current affairs. Let's get into today's discussion with the Spirit in mind.
So as we move along here now, we're now at the third point, and the third point is anchoring your identity. So if you're keeping track, we have point number one, positioning you for your purpose. Point number two, revealing people's role in your destiny. And then point number three, anchoring your identity. And I love this one, Bishop, because it really speaks to me. It speaks to where I'm at. And it really speaks to a lot of people because people search and will spend money to help people to interpret who they are. You might say, well, what does that mean? People will take various different assessments. There's various different assessments, objective assessments out there. I've taken them in medical school. I've taken them in residency to help me to figure out what specialty may align better with my characteristics that I was born with. So identity is huge. And so you might say, well, Shepard, or Bishop, how does rejection anchor your identity? Like that in itself is a little difficult. Well, as you look at the rejection, it will help to bubble up and help to remove some of the scales, if you would, who you truly are. The different situations that you go through in rejection will actually help to sharpen your skills, or help us to understand who you are. The question I was asking Bishop, even as we were preparing for this episode, is what do you do when your identity is rooted in rejection and loss? That question is huge because so many of us face rejection, Bishop. Let's just think about just some of the things. I was just thinking about rejection in physical health, staying over here in this lane where I work at or work in, rejection in your physical health, how your physical body could literally reject you. I've been dealing, interesting enough, with some women in my practice who are dealing with miscarriages. And just from families, from the mother perspective and from the dad's perspective, Bishop, that's been very interesting. How the men carry that loss, and it's so interesting because the family is excited. They want to be able to conceive. They want to be able to become or broaden their family. They're already a family, husband and wife. But then they also want to broaden their family to have children. And when something happens that breaks that, I won't say it breaks that desire, but their desire is strong, but they're not able to, that desire is not able to be manifested into what they would want as a child because of a miscarriage or because of an accident, or simply because they physically may not be able to do it. That really hurts. That really hurts, Bishop. I was just thinking about some of those things, where your physical body can literally reject you. And so how does that tie back into, okay, Shepard, so I hear where you're at. So how is that anchoring your identity? I'm going to stop there, Bishop, and I want to continue, with this dialogue.
Yeah, and emphasis on continue. Just by way of a disclaimer, we will not do this subject, which is exhaustive credit today. And so, even while you're watching, you may continue. We welcome your comments and insights because we would just scratch the surface with this. One of the reasons is because this is one of those whys that are difficult to find a why. There's something in us, first of all, in a deeply spiritual sense. There's something in us that has a propensity and will to live, not just to exist, but to flourish. And that's good. That's the wisdom of scriptures. Even when God was cautioning Adam and Eve against certain boundaries and transgressing them, the thing to bring them into discipline was, if you cross this boundary, you will surely die. On some level, it is hopefully that the desire to live would be greater. So there's something in us anthropologically as humans that have a propensity to want to live. That's really, quite frankly, why the helping professions in medicine and science exist. That's why we talk about fighting illness. Listen to the words. It's saying that something in us wants to live. And so that is, and our bodies, in some sense, when it rejects us, I would submit also feels like a sense of betrayal.
Right. Yep.
Because my mind, if we go to, as we allude to now, spirit, soul, and body, well, if I'm a person of faith in the Abrahamic phase, my spirit has this eternal consciousness. I want to live. My mind is in a place where I want to live. My body is not cooperating. And so that does feel like not only rejection, but also betrayal, because it's not an agreement with the other two components of my being, if you will. And you just talked about the importance of alignment. So that's the frustration, and I know you, both of us in our vocations encounter people. It's like, I have a will to live, but this is not cooperating with me. And just on a very surface level, I will submit that that's the importance from the faith traditions of saying that my identity is more than my body.
Right.
That I have an identity. The 2 Corinthians comes to mind, where Paul says, to be honest, my outer man is perishing. I'm coming to terms with the mortality of my physicality. But I'm also aware that my inner man is being strengthened and renewed. And his faith helps him to find an identity that is greater than his physicality. That doesn't mean we don't mourn. It doesn't mean we don't grieve. It doesn't mean that we don't feel it. And it doesn't mean that we don't fight it.
Right.
But we certainly do, but it's just that's not an effort to spiritually bypass. It's an effort to find this identity that exceeds, and that's the great hope of these faith systems. It literally says that we are more than our bodies. Our bodies we're made in the image and likeness of God. Our bodies are important, but we are more than that. And moreover, it proposes that after that, the idea of a new and glorified body is part of the hope of the faith. But what it's trying to address is this reality that there are times when our body betrays, and it feels like betrayal and rejection. But it offers the hope that we are more than that.
Yeah, and Bishop, and I want us to help somebody, because that betrayal is what I find people, especially who are rooted in the faith, really struggle with. They really struggle with that when their physical bodies fail them. They believe God for healing, and yet they receive the doctor's report, and we see those things. And I, as a physician, have to give some bad news at times. Yet, being a person of faith, understand that yes, there are times where we believe God and we know that He's able, and yet the people was like, well, I just, my body is not responding to my desires, not responding to my faith, if you would. Can we speak to that, Bishop? Because that really is a struggle. And for some people, they would say, then I must not be the person who God called me to be. I've heard that too, where people are saying, hey, there must be something wrong with me. I must have messed up somewhere where I'm not able to be like I use for example, if a family is not able to conceive, and it could be because of the mother, it could be because of the father. We have to be honest with that. It's not always because of the mother. It could be an issue with dad, and they might say, well, I want to be fruitful and multiply like the scriptures say, and we just physically can't do that. That's a tough place to be in. Bishop, can you help us out first, and then I'll come back behind it, and provide some other practical ways. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, we're talking about these things, and none of us are masters of them. Because again, in our humanity, and that's a good thing, it's something in us that wants to live. Moreover, when we add our faith perspective into it, one of the rewards of the faith is everlasting life. So this idea that not only do I want to live, but there is a God who offers the gift of life. And so how do I do that? And it happens to all of us. I'm kind of having a flashback here without telling you, but there have been times when I needed to when I received a call from my general care physician that from an office that needed to reschedule because my physician was going through a health crisis.
Yes, sir.
It is what it is. And so all of us are mortal healers and helpers. And so I think I would say real quickly that, so there's no easy solution for that. Mortality is not something that we approve of as much as it is that we come to accept. And as you know, Dr. Shepard, acceptance is the healing part of grief. Yes. And it does not mean approval. It does not. It does not mean preference. It means that I've come to a place where I have found some modicum of peace, which is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of healthy coping mechanisms. And so I've come to find some measure of peace, not preference, but peace in accepting these signs of my mortality. And so that is a grieving process that I don't think ever really gets full acceptance. Even Jesus wept when Lazarus passed. So in his humanity, he's demonstrating that this is something before he worked a miracle, he came to demonstrate the importance of accepting and acknowledging a grieving process. And so to that, I wouldn't say that our faith is in vain because we don't get a particular prayer answered the way we want it to be answered. Even with that, Jesus, again, that's the significance of letting Lazarus die, right? If you had been here, he would die. And here it is, the one you love. Thank you. I got this. So the message to Jesus was, the one you love is sick, which means that God's love does not necessarily prevent experiences with illness.
Wow.
And because we are experiencing illness does not mean that God does not love us.
Wow.
And so we have to have faith in, what we take faith in is that God has many ways of healing. And sometimes healing is on the other side of this existence. That's the hope we have. That's the faith we have. It's not preference. It's not enjoyment. It's acceptance based on a faith position. That's the only objective, because the other ways are unfruitful.
Yeah.
If it spirals into depression, that's not particularly helpful. If it spirals into negativity and resentment, if it spirals into a rejection of the faith and anger with God, really none of that brings our loved one back, and none of that necessarily turns around our diagnosis or whatever. But this idea of saying the best, even if you want to put it in a mathematical equation, I'm a man of faith, clearly, but if you want to put it in a mathematical equation, Blaise Pascal's wager for you philosophers out there, but the best option, the most viable option, is to trust that there's a God who loves me and cares, and to accept, not approve, but accept that God knows what he's doing.
Whew.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at Spirit in Mind, and we're also on Instagram at Spirit in Mind Live. Join us next time for a new episode of Spirit in Mind.